When it comes to things like the benefit, this government in particular, is often getting it right. I think the traffic light sanction system is a good step towards progress, and I have insights into the system which can say it's probably doing something, but isn't enforced all that hard, because I would say a good chunk of the people that work for MSD don't have much interest in doing what the government wants, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that system is a step in the right direction if there was to be a step in the right direction. Where the government is getting it wrong, in my opinion, is their desire to effectively punish 18 and 19-year-olds who aren't employed if their parents earn a certain amount of money. Now, I do believe this is only if they're living at home with their parents, so it kind of counteracts it somewhat. So if you're a reasonably independent 18, 19-year-old who wants to try or who has left home but suddenly finds themselves out of work, I don't believe that it will impact them. The point being is, the government is ignoring what the actual problem is for 18 and 19-year-olds out of work. There, of course, are always going to be lazy people. There are going to be lazy people who are 25. There are going to be lazy people who are 35, 55. The problem with the government's approach to this whole trying to prevent 18, 19-year-olds being on the benefit is why they aren't in work in the first place. Is it primarily because they're lazy? 18, 19-year-olds? Maybe. But the broader problem is one that they refuse to actually address or fix, and in fact they actively make it worse. And that is the fact that there are an increasingly restricted number of roles available. If they did this, let's say in 2015, I would not care. It's 2025, the economy's in a very, very different place. And there is simply no justification to pretend like the only reason 18 and 19-year-olds aren't in work right now is they're lazy. And the whole thing, it's not just the fact that they are targeting 18, 19-year-olds. It's not just the fact that there is a limited amount of work. It's the language they're using. They're actually pushing this get them out of bed narrative. They're actually doing that. And that's insulting to all of the people who are actively looking for work but can't get a foot in the door because people are choosing to hire the most unskilled people imaginable. I recently was turned down for employment because I was told that I'm overqualified. I'm a high school dropout and I'm still overqualified. Why? Because I decided to upskill after leaving high school. So I'm overqualified. I'm overqualified because when I was when I had an opportunity to engage in the Young Enterprise scheme, I led a young enterprise, a social enterprise, to some varying degrees of success in that year's scheme. So I'm overqualified because I was a chief executive. I was a innovation and development, operations manager. I only did it for 13, 14 months, but hey, I'm overskilled because I have experiences leading teams. I'm overskilled because I myself happen to understand how money works despite being a high school dropout. Okay. I would say I have earned far more knowledge from reading a couple books than I did in that entire 14 months leading that social enterprise. That's just a reality. You can upskill your knowledge and insights into things very, very easily. And despite my last employment, I was a very, very good employee. I showed up to work. I did my job to the best of my ability. I went above and beyond where necessary. I did my job very, very well, and I did my job so well that I was fast-tracked to higher paid roles, into more specialized roles. And yet I was still let go for a reason I'm still not entirely sold on. So why is it that, despite that, finding employment for a 25-year-old who is experienced in at least hospitality and leading and some form of management and innovative ideas, why someone such as myself struggles to find work, let alone people with full-blown diplomas? There are people who are extremely educated, who are similar age to me or even younger, even older, who cannot find entry-level work. Why? Because there is an overabundance of people looking for entry-level work and not enough entry-level work available. That's the harsh reality. And why is this? Because we are importing so many cheap immigrants. We are importing immigrants under the guise of we need to fill particular roles. Unfortunately, for every one that you might get filling a a role picking fruit in the orchards and whatever, you'll get like 5 others who are sitting in our urban areas taking up hospitality and warehousing roles. Why is it that someone like myself or someone with a diploma may not be attractive to a supermarket? Because we will leave. Why is it someone such as myself, or again, someone with a diploma, would not be attractive to most entry-level positions with minimal growth in terms of career prospects? Because we will leave. Unfortunately, we also live in a time where the higher skilled roles are very, very low. They're dwindling. There aren't many available. You look at people who are into graphic design, who are wanting to work into the film and TV industry, who want to work in any of the arts kind of areas, but in arts that are fundamentally needed. They can't find roles because costs need to be cut. The economy is simply not in a position to do it. Therefore, you have a bunch of 20 to 25-year-olds who are out of work because their diplomas are currently useless because they can't find any job in their field. And not even JB Hi-Fi will hire them. You cannot find work in 2025 if you are a skilled New Zealander looking for anything entry level. You struggle to find work if you're a skilled New Zealander in those skilled areas, because those roles are being cut because the economy cannot sustain it. That's just a harsh reality. Now, I could take my previous employer's word for it that they could not keep me on, even though I was someone who was able to fulfill specialized roles and move up their career ladder because of the economy. I could take that, and I'll accept it purely for my own sake, because that's far better than the alternatives. But what's that got to say? It means that someone with experience, with leadership potential, with actual ability, is out of work, whilst cheap migrants come and flood the market and ensure that the number of people vying for entry-level roles at JB Hi-Fi, at Woolworths, at anywhere in hospitality, retail, warehousing, anywhere. It just ensures that far too many people are vying for those positions, and ultimately, a good chunk of people are going to miss out. If I was an employer, my safe bet is to go for someone who I know is going to be able to do the job and will stick around long term. You know, I'm not going to hire the 18, 19-year-old who's going to uni to become a doctor one day. I'm just not. I'm not going to hire the 18, 19-year-old going to uni to study anything, frankly, because they're not going to stick around long term. There are a few areas, there are a few jobs, there are a few roles that are very high turnover, and you're probably going to get your foot in the door, and the expectation is that you're not going to be there long. But of course, if you are planning on being there long, you have to be someone very, very particular, and you have to be there at the perfect time. You have to be the exact thing they're looking for at that exact moment. Those opportunities aren't there every single day. So again, I get back to my point. The government is deaf. They are deaf when they're treating this matter, when they're treating these 18, 19-year-olds who aren't in work like the bad guy. Like they're thinking like making this change to the benefit's actually going to do anything good, that it's actually addressing the problem. The biggest problem right now is the 20 to 30-year-olds who can't get a job because of your immigration settings for the last 20 years. That's the problem. The fact that entry-level jobs are only higher wage now than they were 10 years ago because of minimum wage increases, by the way, which have negatively impacted the ability of those same businesses to hire more people. But again, who are they hiring? The immigrants who will stay there for 10 years. Who are they hiring? Oh yeah, the immigrants who they're related to. Because a lot of businesses these days, even in hospitality, are owned by immigrants who want to hire their own. You know, this ultimately goes to a broader issue of not just why people aren't in work, but what demographics of people aren't in work. Because there is an increasing number of people who are New Zealand born that aren't in work at the expense of those who have come here recently. And we can pretend all we like that it's, oh yeah, well, it's just New Zealand borns are lazy and all these people that are coming over here are really eager to work. There are many, many people eager to work who simply cannot hold on. I'm not the only one in my family struggling in this area, and I'm probably the least competent of the lot of us. It's a broader issue. It's a broader issue that is related to the economy, related to immigration, related to a range of different policy settings that we've had over the last 20 years, which have contributed to the point now where we've got loads of people reliant on the government even when they are employed. But did you think it ended? As soon as someone found employment, did you think that the government support just cut off? No. Doesn't cut off at all. Not until they're earning a certain amount every week. Someone could go get a part-time job tomorrow and be working 20 hours a week. Great. But on minimum wage, they're still going to be reliant on the government to make up the difference because they simply can't survive on 20 hours a week on minimum wage. You simply can't. Especially not if you're not at home. So why is this happening? Well, it's because it's far easier to find work in part-time roles than it is full-time roles. And those part-time roles are done this way for a particular reason. It saves the business money. If you've got someone full-time on a full-time contract and they have to work a certain number of hours per week mandated, you are guaranteeing that you have to pay them that amount. If they're on part-time, if you've got a bunch of people rotating on a part-time roster and you only mandate, let's say, 12 hours a week, then you can have people work less hours than necessary depending on how business is going, saving you money. So, someone might be in a part-time role which they could in theory work 20 to 30 hours in a week. However, they're only guaranteed 12, meaning that they're still reliant on the government to make up the difference for those weeks where they only get 12. Why are they only getting 12? Because business is slow, their boss sends them home. Business is slow, their boss cancels their shift. Business is slow, and we're saying, yeah, you've done your 12 for the week, or you're going to do your 12 for the week, but that's not today. Sorry, that's your contract. Because that's the only job they could find, because the full-time roles are dwindling, the part-time roles are highly contested, and ultimately we have to rely on the government for support. That's the situation we're in. If nothing else, it's accommodation supplement here, food supplements here. That's the situation many, many young people are in. And so if you think it's over just because they've got a job, you're kidding yourself. If you think it's over just because 18 and 19-year-olds will stop getting supported by the government, you're kidding yourself. All you're doing is finding a scapegoat for a problem that has absolutely nothing to do with beneficiaries. And there are many lazy beneficiaries, and I think the government's taken good steps to address some of those. But there are so many people on the benefit who are, out of no fault of their own, unable to support themselves. And they're doing everything they possibly can to make that different. And so ultimately people are looking at alternative means of making money. That might be YouTube, that might be other forms of social media, that might be selling themselves. Pretty easy for young women in particular to try and make extra money on the side selling themselves. And so at the end of the day, say what you want about beneficiaries, say what you want about what they're getting. A lot of people are entirely reliant on the government at this time because there is no other option for them. And before you say there's always an option, don't be arrogant. You know that's not the case.